Welcome to Loop TV. I'm Gene along with Doug for Sunday, February 6th. We're going to look back at last week, look forward next week. As far as last week, we're talking a little about a Tesla recall, second Ford results, and looking forward to this week about Take-Two, a tease related to their next platform, and they will be reporting this week. And back to the top, Doug, Tesla recalling 817,000 vehicles. This is the second recall in a week. I think there's like 54,000 in the previous recall that was related to a creeping stop or rolling stop feature that they needed to get rid of for safety reasons. Not surprising. This time it is a tone. The way I understand it, there's a tone that is not properly playing when your seatbelt is not fastened. So they go and do a download over the air. They call it a recall, but you don't actually recall anything. You just update. Anything to take away beyond it's 2 in a week, but any takeaways from your perspective?
Don't think so. I mean, the seatbelt thing, pun intended probably, but is just noise. I don't think that one matters at all. That's an easy fix. I am curious though, the rolling stop thing I had seen get a little bit more attention just because obviously it involved FSD, the beta software. What's your take on that? How should we think about them sort of going back and taking a feature out that, the government said was endangering users, really?
My take is the feature shouldn't have been there in the first place. I think the law is that you stop, and I think that vehicles, autonomous vehicles, I think it's understandable, respectable, the right approach to have the vehicles following the law of the land. And so I was surprised that it was always a head scratcher to me that they were doing it in the first place. I don't have a good reason why they had that in the first place, and so I was happy to see that that piece removed. I don't think it changes the trajectory of FSD. I think it probably more than anything kind of plays into this kind of bizarre confrontation that the company continues to have with NHTSA, and ultimately the right thing to do to remove the feature.
Agreed. I don't have anything else to add to it. I mean, I think that it is, just a sign of kind of how they think about it. They are pushing the envelope. They want to push the envelope a little bit, and I think that sort of the way they've approached that reflects that culture. If I'm a user, I do rolling stops as a driver, so it kind of makes sense to me if you think about it from probably a driving perspective. But you're right, from a letter of the law perspective, and ultimately this software does have to reflect the law.
Exactly.
It's the right thing
Yep.
to do.
It doesn't matter that 99% of people roll stop signs, because you have to have some sort of a standard to it. And I like the fact that Tesla is out trying to push the envelope, but I feel like in this case, this is not a good use of their envelope pushing capabilities. That wasn't all that was in the news last week in auto. Ford reported on Friday the stock was down on those results. We're not going to focus on being down on the results. We're going to focus on some of their commentary related to electrification. They talked about in 2023, that's when they're kind of first ramp, be around 650,000 electric vehicles. They have reservations for just over 300,000 vehicles today. Most of those are the F-150 Lightning, which they have paused taking reservations on. And they also talked about that they want to have more than 40% of their vehicles by 2030, so in 8 years, to be electric. And that would imply approximately 2.5 million, if you assume that 50% of them, and you assume they grow their top line vehicle deliveries, approximately 2.5 million vehicles. So before we kind of compare all those metrics to Tesla, I'm just curious, kind of across the board, the reservation number, the ramp in next year, and some of their commentary about the 10-year, just stream of conscience.
I mean, they're investing heavily. I think that's the clearest thing I think we can say. And the other thing that happened this week, Doug Field, formerly of Apple and Tesla, had talked about the fact that Ford is adding another $20 billion to $30 billion they already committed to their electric vehicle program. So we know they're committed. I mean, we know that all of the traditional auto OEMs are committed to trying to figure this out. We know they're behind too. I don't think that's a surprise. The only thing I would say when you think about that number in 2030, that 40-50% of all vehicles sold. I think it's kind of interesting from the perspective of, it shows you the mindset maybe of traditional auto, where they think the ramp maybe to EVs is slower than I'm sure every EV maker thinks it will be, and only time will tell how quickly it does end up happening.
That's a good takeaway, is that it gives you some. If you had asked me to guess what that number was, I would have said they would have said something like 70%. So the 40 or better is lower than what I would have expected them to talk about, and kind of, I think, speaks to a lot of, I think, the muscle memory in the industry. If you just as a point of comparison, and you have to look at the source on this comparison too, but Elon has said that they think they can do 20 million vehicles per year. You have to enumerate that in 2030, and so you're talking about a 8x gap here between the two of those. Hard to say if which one's going to be right or wrong. Not It's so far out there, it's not even worth debating that. But I think it does illustrate kind of the ramp, and I think I'm a believer in what Tesla's doing. I think that Ford's in a great spot too. I think ultimately they got great products. I think the F-150 Lightning is going to knock it out of the park. So, anything more on Ford before we jump to the week ahead?
I would just say, anytime you think about these predictions, these long-term predictions, I actually saw an analyst on Twitter, I think it was, who was making a prediction about carbon credits, actually. And he said, this is the first time I think I've ever heard an analyst say this. He said, my end of year target is 110 euros. And he said, I know that I'm going to be wrong. And I perked up, because most people who make predictions don't admit that the odds are that they are going to be wrong. And I think we think about Ford saying, hey, we're going to be 40% EVs, Tesla saying we're going to be 20 million units. Odds are they're both wrong. They might be wildly low, wildly high, who knows? But I think to bring it back to, thinking about these companies and thinking about investing in the space, you have to think about the probabilities of these outcomes and ultimately what's priced in the stock. This has always been my argument for any stock, whether it's an EV company, an advertising company. We're going to talk about gaming companies in just a minute, but you have to think about what's priced into the stock, and then what are the odds that you think that can happen, or hopefully something even better than that can happen. And I think it's as simple as that. Like think about the odds.
Agree that they're not going to get it right. We're not going to get it right. And the second is that just the whole electrification, autonomous, not just in the car makers, but just the whole supply chain, everything from the batteries to the sensors. We're going to be doing a lot of investing in this theme. We're going to do it at the right price. That's been a challenge, because some of these valuations have run ahead. They've now are coming back. They're still not back to where we want them, but I still see a big opportunity for our LPs in the months and years ahead in this topic. So we're going to be paying close attention to it. Another company that's in our portfolio is Take-Two. Confession here: I've never played. I've never played Grand Theft Auto. I've been in a room where it's been played. Pardon?
We've got to get you on board.
We do, yeah. As an investor, I should be at least have that piece. But I've always was impressed. The piece that always blew me away was that how old of kind of their franchise releases, how old it was. And maybe just recap before we go through the news that came out, the tweet that came out on Friday. Maybe just recap when the last time, or how important is Grand Theft Auto? Start there, and when's the last time it's been officially updated?
I think Grand Theft Auto is one of the top 3 game franchises in the world, kind of period, full stop. And I think the numbers back that up. For GTA 5, they sold over 155 million copies to date of that particular title. And really, there's only one other game that's ever sold more for a single title, and that's Minecraft. So this is a game. Yeah,
GTA 5's been out. That came out like 5-6 years ago, right?
8 years ago, actually.
8 years ago. That just blows my mind away.
It might even be 8.5 years old now, if I remember correctly, when it came out. But I mean, it's to have a life extended for that long as a game title is very rare, because if you think about things like Call of Duty, that title gets updated every year. So Activision's bringing out new Call of Duty all the time. What I think has been so incredible for Rockstar and Take-Two is how they've done such a great job keeping the title fresh, even though it is 8 years old. They've done a great job with online content. They actually brought Dr. Dre as a character into the game fairly recently, and they had some tracks that they did, some music that's kind of genuine to the game. And so I think they've been super creative about how they think
He
about
doesn't
the
work at Apple
universe that they've
anymore.
created.
Dr. Dre's moved on.
Say that again.
He left Apple.
That's right.
Okay, so now he's in the metaverse and
Now he's in the
in
metaverse.
Grand
He's a
Theft Auto.
character.
Okay.
That's right. But I think that's what's really special about what they've done with this franchise, and what's exciting about what's to come next. You know, when we think about what is the next iteration of the Grand Theft series, I think it could be a much more broad, expansive, maybe even persistent world that doesn't need a 7, an 8, a 9. It could be, you know, this is the last entry,
Mm-hmm.
but they find ways to
Grand
just
Theft
make it persistent and more of, you know, a metaverse or something like that.
makes sense. And what was the Twitter tease on Friday?
Yeah, the Rockstar who develops the game, they basically said that we're confirming that we've been doing work on the next entry to the Grand Theft Auto series. And they didn't say anything about dates or timing or anything like that, but people certainly got excited. The stock was
Yeah.
up on the news. And I think, I mean, just kind of playing game theory a little bit, if you put a statement out like that, it's hard to believe the game's 4 or 5 years away. That would be an awfully early statement to
Mm-hmm.
make for something that's still that long away, to replace something that's already 8 years old. So it probably means the game is maybe 2 to 3 years away. I would guess it's somewhere in that window, but maybe a little sooner than people had thought
And
before.
I don't know if we enumerated that or not, but the expectation was that it was around 5 years away. And if it came out 2 to 3 years away, that's ahead of expectations. And sounds like your take is Grand Theft Auto Metaverse, something along those lines.
I think they've got a great shot. They're probably one of the dark horses to create, you know, the metaverse. I don't know that people generally think of them as having that play, but I do think that they have a legitimate shot of creating this more persistent world. It's certainly more, you know, teen or adult oriented versus something like a Roblox, which obviously is built more for younger users. But I do think that they've created already a world that people keep coming back to. They find ways to update it. And that's really what I think the metaverse ultimately will be, is this persistent thing that does need constant sort of pushes in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the content going on there, the stars that maybe get involved with it, and then the evolution of that world and how people kind of interact with it. Take Two and GTA 5 kind of check all those boxes.
It's been fun. I'm not going to commit to playing, by the way. When I'm ready, I'll let you know. I'll let the audience know. On behalf of Doug, Gene, and whenever that next Grand Theft Auto Metaverse game is going to come out in Loop TV, bye for now.